Let's talk about how to beat calling stations in poker, not just the old school kind who might limp with any two cards. I'm talking about the ones you see today in most low stakes live games. The ones who play every two cards. These players don't just enter pots with Queen 3 or Jack 4, they call pre-flop raises with them. You'll raise with Ace King, get 5 callers, and one of them shows up with 3 7 offsuit. And this happens again and again. At most live tables today, there are 4, 5, sometimes 6 players doing this. Playing anything, calling everything, and if you don't adjust, you'll go broke, even playing solid poker. That's what today's video is about, how to beat these kinds of calling stations. It came directly from a comment right here on the channel, a viewer asking, how do you beat a whole table of players who play every 2 cards? It's a real question, and if you've ever played low-stakes live poker, you know exactly what they're talking about. Let's break down what's really happening and how to beat it. Most poker strategy books, courses, and videos are built on a few key assumptions: that players fold to pressure, that they play hands within a certain range, that they think about position, stack size, and pot odds. But calling stations? They don't do any of that. They don't fold to pressure. They call to the river with bottom pair. They don't have hand ranges, they have 2 cards, and it could be any 2 cards. They don't care about position, stack depth, or any of the math. So what happens when you try to apply standard poker strategy to that environment? It falls apart. You end up firing continuation bets into 5-way pots and attempting to bluff people who don't fold. In theory, your strategy is balanced. In practice, it's burning money. And here's the trap. You start doubting your play. You're making good folds, good raises, and still losing. You're thinking, how did he call me with that? But it's not that your fundamentals are wrong. It's that the game you're playing doesn't reward them the same way. To beat calling stations, you need to shift your approach. Not throw out the math, but tailor it to the opponents in front of you. You need a strategy designed for a world where folding is optional and calling is instinct. The common advice is this: tighten up. Play fewer hands. Stick to premium holdings. And that's true, but incomplete. You're not just tightening your range, you're rebuilding it for a new environment. One where speculative hands like suited connectors lose their value because bluffing and fold equity are off the table. In games full of calling stations, you don't need hands that have post-flop flexibility. You need hands that dominate the kinds of trash they call with. Face cards with strong kickers. Pocket pairs that play well multi-way. Suited hands that can make the nut flush, not the third best. You're looking for hands that win at showdown, not hands that can bluff or outplay. Because you're not outplaying anybody, you're getting called by bottom pair, and you better be ahead. And here's the kicker. Regardless of your position, your hand strength should be as strong as what you'd normally play under the gun in a more disciplined game. That's the new baseline. You need absolute clarity when entering a hand in these games. Even then, your real edge comes from mastering board texture, reading player tendencies, and understanding the dynamics of the table. In these types of games, you don't bluff. If your goal is to fold someone out, you're wasting chips. These players aren't folding. They're chasing draws, chasing pairs, chasing ghosts. So what do you do instead? You value bet hard. If you've got the best hand, make them pay to see the turn and river. Don't slow play unless you're absolutely certain they'll do the betting for you. In fact, when these calling stations are also aggressive, I won't bet at all with a strong hand. I'll let them fire first. Let them hang themselves. Let them bluff into me. But that's not trapping for the sake of trapping. That's calculated rope. On the other hand, if I don't think they are going to keep betting, then I will bet, and it's usually big, giving them bad pot odds to call. Mostly, these players aren't folding, so no bargain bets for them, it's full price. If they do fold, I'm good with that too. In these wild, loose games, the board matters, yes, but the player's tendencies matter at least as much. Reads become more important than range charts. This isn't a solver lab, it's a circus. Watch closely. Who calls with bottom pair? Who folds top pair to a pot-sized river bet? Who slow plays monsters, and who snap raises with air? This is where you print money, identifying players who overfold the river, and using aggression only against those types. Meanwhile, dial it back against the hardcore calling stations. Don't waste bluffs on players who think middle pair is gold. Read the tendencies. Study the patterns. Know your targets. In wild games, you will face moments where you're technically ahead, but practically beat. This is the paradox of disciplined play in chaotic fields, the willingness to fold strong hands to highly textured boards, which you can't beat, and heavy aggression to save money in the long run. Let me give you a real example. I'm in a deep $1, $3 game, no cap buy-in. The average stack size is between $1,000 and $2,000. I'm in the big blind with pocket eights. A loose aggressive opens to $15, and it goes 5 ways to the flop. The board comes the 8 of spades, 9 of diamonds, and the 9 of spades. I've flopped a boat. First to act, I bet $50 into $75. It folds around to seat 7, a frequent loose aggressive opponent. He hesitates, not in if I should call way, but in the should I raise kind of way. He eventually just calls. The turn brings the 10 of clubs. Not good. I bet $150 into $175, and he raises me to $400. Now I know this guy. I've played with him dozens of times. I knew immediately what he had, 10-9. He just turned a bigger boat. I sat with it for a second. I could not beat 9-10 or 9 anything for that matter. But the way he acted told me the full story. I let it go. And then he flips it over, 10-9 of hearts, like he owned me. But he didn't, and I wasn't about to let anyone know I folded a boat. Sometimes folding a monster is the smartest move you can make. Especially in these loose, wild games where there are so many combinations of hands that will call with garbage and end up smashing the turn or river. This isn't GTO. This is survival. This is long-term profit. Let's be honest. At first glance, these tables look like chaos. Every hand's a 5 or 6-way pot. Players are calling down with bottom pair, and someone just scooped a $300 pot with Jack 4 offsuit. But once you adjust, learn the tendencies, and tighten up, these games are absolute gold mines. Why? Because bad players don't fold. Because they overvalue and overplay weak hands. Bad players chase draws with no discipline. Plus, bad players keep coming back because they remember that night that they won big and all the sessions they lost. Well, that was just bad luck. When your opponents consistently make fundamental mistakes, like calling with trash, overplaying second pair, or drawing with terrible odds, they are bleeding money. They're not managing their bankroll. They're not using strategy. They're just gambling. And the math doesn't lie. Over time, disciplined, strategic players crush in these environments. You won't win every session. You will take bad beats. But if you're patient, the long-term edge is huge. This is where bankroll discipline, mental toughness, and decision-making come together. You stop worrying about whether you won a hand, and focus on whether you played it right. Because over hundreds of sessions, that's what builds stacks. Wild games don't require wild play. They require clarity, structure, and patience. Let's wrap this up. Playing against wild, undisciplined calling stations isn't easy, but it is beatable. You just need to approach it with the right mindset and strategy. Tighten your range. Think like you're always under the gun. Play for value. Don't bluff. Don't slow play unless it's right. Bet bigger when you're ahead. Study player tendencies. These games are about reading people as much as reading boards. Be willing to fold strong hands. Don't get trapped by ego or sunk cost. And think long term. The chaos favors you if you stay disciplined. These games are for the faint of heart, but if you master the adjustments, they're some of the most profitable tables you'll ever sit at. This is Terry from PokerRailbird.com. Thanks for watching. If you think our content brings value to your game, please like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, we'll see you at the tables.